All right, everyone, welcome back into another NFL DFS video. We are going to be breaking down week one, the main slate here for you guys, giving you guys the top picks and plays for each position and going over the lineup process for week one as well. Let's go ahead and get into it. So we are going to start out here with the running back position, guys. The running back position is pretty darn loaded at basically every pricing tier in regards to who we want to be targeting. Okay, receiver-wise, kind of the same as well, but we are getting almost too good values to pass up there. We'll talk about that in just a second. But what I want to do is I want to start from the top price players, running back wise, or by each position as well, and just talk about which players I want to be on in that regard. So I do want to start out with Bijan Robinson a little bit here. He is the player that we could pay up for, obviously. Now, I do want to call it that in 2 games against the Bucs last year, one of the games he only went for 10.7. That was the first game. Drake London ended up going off in that game. And then the second game, it was basically the exact opposite, 23 in that second game, and Drake London didn't really go off. So maybe there's something that you guys could end up doing lineup builder wise, where you're creating a rule where if a lineup includes Bijan Robinson, you're not including Drake London. I wouldn't hate that. But the biggest thing with Robinson is the fact that Michael Penix is still a young quarterback. And so, teams are going to have a full offseason to kind of plan for him, especially those divisional teams like that. And so there is a little bit of concern that maybe he takes a step back. And I wouldn't say that he dominated last year as well. It's definitely encouraging what he did. But there were a little bit of flaws in this game. Definitely an upgrade from Kirk Cousins. And if you look at really Robinson from when Michael Penix took over, Robinson really went off in those games. Whereas with Kirk Cousins, a little bit of a slow start. But we do see week 18, 17, and 16 really just went off in those games for over 20 plus points in those games. Another flip side of that as well is looking at what's going on with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers receivers. So we know that Chris Godwin is going to be out. He's not going to play in this game. And Jalen McMillan is expected to sit as well. And so albeit Emeka Egbuka has gotten a bunch of hype, and he's going to be someone we touch on later on in this video, he is still a rookie as the second receiver that Baker Mayfield's going to be looking at. And we also got to realize that they did lose their offensive coordinator, who you could argue was a big component of the Baker Mayfield resurgence there. And so, we're just finding reasons as to why maybe Robinson actually ends up being a player that we should pay up for as a running back here. Now, I don't think we have to, but if you guys wanted to, I do think we could find reasons for why it ends up being more of a run-heavy script for him. Now, in that same game, we also do have Bucky Irving, who we got to pay attention to Rachaad White here. If Rachaad White ends up sitting, then Bucky Irving becomes a much better play. Now, I don't think we're going to be worried about him losing out on his workload at all, really. I think it should be pretty much secure. He looked like a stud to end the season last year. And again, with them being pretty darn banged up at the receiver spot, maybe that does lead to a little bit more of Bucky Irving. Now, if I'm thinking about defending that defense, though, or that offense via defense, I'm probably just betting on keeping Bucky Irving basically in front of you and double teaming Mike Evans. If Emeka Egbuka, a rookie receiver, beats you, kind of albeit, that'd be my strategy. So I'm a little bit hesitant to get to Bucky Irving even at that price tag. And that's going to be more due to some of the other running back plays that we have. Now, we do have Jahmyr Gibbs that's priced up as well. I would say priced up pretty high. We do have to worry about David Montgomery maybe taking a decent workload at the start of the season as well. There's a little bit of concern there as well, I will say. Now, if we look at the games that he won against Green Bay last year as well, 19.3, only 19.3, I should say, and then only 14.6. Okay, so I don't think we can really use last year's results as a true sign of what's going to happen, but it is a little bit concerning there. Now, I will say the Green Bay Packers do worry me a little bit. I looked at the spread. The Packers are favored to win by 1.5 points in this game. A little bit surprising to me because when you look at the Green Bay Packers, as I'm currently recording this video, they are extremely banged up. Their backup running back, Marshawn Lloyd, still banged up. Look at the receivers, guys. Jaden Reed is banged up. Romeo Doubs still doing some weird stuff, it seems like, a little bit just mentally. Christian Watson's obviously out. Wicks is out. Their other receiver picks, Xavier Williams, is currently banged up as well. There's a little bit of concern there with the Green Bay Packers. You got Jordan Love with a little bit of a thumb injury going on as well. Just little things like that to the point where I could see this being a game where the Detroit Lions tend to try to control it via the run game. Now, they lost Ben Johnson as well. It's typically a spot where I just want to take a hands-off approach and just kind of see what develops there for that offense and see who actually ends up being productive. I do think it's just going to be Jahmyr Gibbs, though. We could potentially get to David Montgomery a little bit. I just don't think we're worried about that. So continuing on with the running backs, another big question spot that we have is Christian McCaffrey. So they are another team that is extremely banged up. And this is another spot where if I'm using a lineup builder tool, I'm probably going to create a rule that if a lineup includes Christian McCaffrey, I probably don't want to get to Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle, two players that we'll touch on later on in this video, and also vice versa. I probably don't want to get to Christian McCaffrey when I'm getting to both George Kittle and Ricky Pearsall. We'll probably be able to do that as a stack, which I'll touch on later on in this video. But I think it's going to end up being one or the other because Seattle's probably going to try to scheme to stop one of those situations. Keep everything in front of you or try to stop Christian McCaffrey. Now, the thing with Christian McCaffrey is that we know that the San Francisco 49ers are extremely banged up. Okay, Isaac Guendo seems to be healthy, seems to be good to go. They did bring in Brian Robinson Jr., who is obviously, I would say, going to be more of a short yardage back. I think that's what's going to end up happening, but that's not a good thing for Christian McCaffrey. And we haven't really seen Christian McCaffrey be someone we can trust now for over a year. Even some of the clips that are coming out of camp, I wouldn't say they're encouraging. They're not disencouraging either. They're not like something that causes us to have negative thoughts towards him, but it does. I wish he showed a little bit more pop and a little bit more burst with some of the training camp clips that we have seen. But I do think it could end up being a spot where he just gets a lot of targets because in the passing game gets a lot of work in the run game as well because they are extremely banged up, guys. Juwan Jennings could end up sitting in the first game. Brandon Ayuk is out. Demarcus Robinson did end up getting suspended. Jacob Cowan and Jordan Watkins, both banged up as well, could end up sitting. Russell Gage was someone that they brought in, banged up. They had a trade for Sky Moore, okay, which is definitely interesting there. So it could just be a game where Christian McCaffrey gets extreme high volume. And I don't mind him as a play. I just think that there is some concern. We want to get exposure to him as well. So now we can skip over some of the plays, guys. We are cautious about what happens with Devon Achane. If he ends up sitting, and it also seems like Jalen Wright's going to end up sitting for them in week 1. That's just kind of my expectation right now. Ollie Gordon could easily end up being the best value there because Alexander Madison, who was kind of their RB number 3 and going to be their goal line back, is also out for the year. Okay, so Ollie Gordon already could end up being just the goal line back for them. That is something that they needed to address with Devon Achane as the running back, and they did that. And so if Devon Achane ends up being even a little bit banged up, Ollie Gordon at this price tag of 4.2 is just too good to pass up on, especially considering that he could end up having a little bit of a work as a goal line running back. So he's going to be someone that we're looking at for value purposes. I wouldn't say right now, as it currently sits, we need to go out of our way to target him. But if we get that confirmation that both Wright and Achane are out, it's going to be very difficult to pass up on him. He did start for the Miami Dolphins in their last preseason game with, Tua in there as well. And it is worth calling out, guys. Tyreek Hill is currently banged up as well. That could just create a little bit more of a run presence in that game for the Miami Dolphins, especially given the fact that they are going up against the Indianapolis Colts. But that kind of brings me into the next play. I would say arguably the top running back play on the slate currently. And some people might think that's a little bit of a hot take. I understand it. But Jonathan Taylor, okay, so he does get a quarterback upgrade with Daniel Jones. Also, that might be a hot take for some people as well. But Daniel Jones is definitely a serviceable quarterback. And I do think offensively, for the offensive weapons more specifically, it's going to be a big quarterback upgrade. The issue with Anthony Richardson is that by nature, the fun part about Anthony Richardson is he keeps defenses guessing with his kind of game and style, but that also keeps us guessing, people that are playing fantasy football, playing NFL DFS. And so it should just lead to a little bit more consistency in that offense. And so I'm looking at Jonathan Taylor in this game against Miami that could be without their top 2 running backs and could be without their best receiver, and also got rid of their tight end from last year. I'm looking at this and saying the Colts could not only win this game, but win this game by a lot. And maybe it just ends up being a game in which Jonathan Taylor ends up getting 23 total opportunities in this game, and we can get that at 6.8. To me, that becomes highly appealing. And you also toss in the fact that, again, the Colts are a little bit banged up as well. Josh Downs is currently banged up. Now, I kind of expect him to be ready for week 1, but if he's not, that just furthers the reason to be on someone like Jonathan Taylor. So as you guys can see, I still haven't clicked on into a running back that we need to be on. That's because we are just getting insanely good running back plays on the slate. I don't think we're going to have as good of a running back slate as we do have in week 1. Now, it's typical. The issue with week 1 is we typically have way too many good plays, and it's trying to narrow down which players we need to specifically be on. That's the case in week 1 here. And let's continue on to some of the more obvious plays. So we're going to be looking at 2 veteran running backs that are playing against each other, which to me is a little bit of a concern, I will say. We are going to be looking at the Cardinals versus the Saints. Okay, you got Alvin Kamara at a very cheap price tag. The issue with Alvin Kamara is obviously going to be the poor quarterback play. Spencer Rattler or Tyler Shaw are going to be the starting quarterback, most likely. And that does concern us a little bit. It definitely does. But at the same time, I think we can expect still a healthy workload for Alvin Kamara regardless. And he should get some work in the passing game as well. We see his targets per game last year. That is something that did not go away. That's something I do not expect to go away again. He should get around 5 targets in this game, especially if it ends up being a game that they are playing from behind. Now, the biggest concern with Alvin Kamara as a play is that they just get blown out to the point where he does not end up playing that much. That is certainly a concern. They were a bad team last year. They're expected to be a bad team again this year. He still should get enough targets to warrant him as a play, but I do think the play I like the most in this game is James Conner, who's priced a little bit cheaper. Okay, so again, with someone like James Conner, the worry is, will he be active throughout the full season? That's the worry about him fantasy football lines, season-long wise, best ball draft wise. But for DFS purposes, that doesn't really matter. Like, he's going to be good to go in week 1, and he stands out in film still, guys. He got limited work throughout the preseason, but he looked good in the preseason as well. That's stuff I'm always looking for when I'm watching that film is, all right, does a veteran player like James Conner still have that burst? And he did. And so to me, guys, given the game script that we are likely to have in this game, and let's just pull this up, guys. Like, the Cardinals are favored by 6.5 points, and it's not an extremely low-scoring game as well. So, yes, this just furthers echoes that James Conner is going to be a very solid play as well. At the same time, you could get away with using Alvin Kamara because it should be more of a pass-heavy script, and he should get a cheap, 5 points in the passing game there as well. But James Conner is going to be the first player I put into the build for now. Now, from there, I do want to call out probably my favorite GBP play for week 1, and that's going to be Kenneth Walker. And so a lot of people are probably not going to get to him because we haven't seen him thus far this preseason. He has been someone that people might be concerned about his injuries just because they have been honestly giving him a very strange workload throughout training camp, like a day on, day off. That is concerning. But guys, if you watch any film throughout the preseason, any Seahawks film throughout the preseason, you realize that the running backs all look good. And why did the running backs all look good? Because they all were not getting touched until 3 to 4 yards down the field. There's just wide open lanes for them. And Kenneth Walker is arguably a top 10 running back talent in the league. His issue is he just cannot stay healthy. Okay, and we already talked about the reasons why the Niners, why we probably like Christian McCaffrey, because of how banged up they are at both the running back position and also receiver position. Well, that could just mean that this game is more likely to stay close, and heck, maybe the Seahawks are even a team that could end up winning this game. But really, if we can expect Kenneth Walker to get around 15 carries just in that, or 15 opportunities in this game, given how good that Seahawks line looked, I mean, just the best line that you could honestly ask for in a run scheme that clearly fits more of Kenneth Walker's kind of run style, it would not be shocking to see him break the slate. He is going to be fresh. We do like that. I do wish we had seen him a little bit in the preseason. I like to see that. I like to get, some confirmation bias, honestly, but all in all, we're not too worried about that. He should be able to hit the ground running, pun intended there. Now, I will be passing up on RJ Harvey and also just J.K. Dobbins for what it's worth. We do have Tony Pollard now in a smash spot as well. He is probably one of the most boring, safe plays in NFL DFS, but also for fantasy football drafts, guys. We do know that Tajay Spears is going to be out in this one. I do say that with a little bit of disappointment. Tajay Spears at the end of last year looked good. He's a fun player, but yes, Tony Pollard is going to be a safe play. The biggest concern with him is going to be the matchup with Denver, a team that has Super Bowl aspirations, and then you also have the Tennessee Titans, who are starting a rookie quarterback in his first game. Now, that should lead to Tony Pollard just getting a bunch of work. I would expect him to get around 20 opportunities in this game. But if we look at the game script here, guys, it should not be a good game script for the Tennessee Titans. 7.5 point dogs. Okay. And so although Tony Pollard is someone that can get used in the passing game, that does concern me a decent amount. And there isn't really running back that I want to be on for the Denver Broncos as well. Probably J.K. Dobbins with the game script, but who knows with Sean Payton. And so we're probably just staying away. Although, again, Tony Pollard probably going to get a huge workload and probably going to get a lot of work in the passing game as well. So one of my favorite plays is actually going to be Tyrone Tracy Jr. And actually one of my favorite spots in terms of betting on a game is this game between the Giants and the Washington Commanders. So this is one of those strange lines to me as well, and I do want to start here, guys. The Giants are 6-point dogs in this game. Washington, 6-point favorites. Decent game total, though, 45.5 points. And the reason I'm calling this out is because obviously that matters in terms of DFS. We typically do not want a negative game script for our running backs. Now, that being said, I kind of think that this is a spot to just be on the Giants in general, just because you look at the Washington Commanders. Terry McLaurin did sign for them recently. Okay, but I kind of expect him to get off to a slow start. Zach Ertz did not sign did not play in the preseason for them as well. Their number one tight end. That's a little bit concerning to me as well. And they are going to a different running back. They obviously traded Brian Robinson Jr. Now, don't get me wrong, Jaden Daniels looked good in the preseason. That's encouraging. But they still have Deebo Samuel there as well, which I'll probably talk about him in a little bit as well. But they're going to be splitting up the workload with the running backs with the aging Austin Eckler, who probably will get a decent amount of work at the start of the season. They obviously have Bill in there, rookie running back that's gaining a ton of hype, and they have Chris Rodriguez as well. Just kind of the lack of continuity that they're going to have heading into the first game. And you have the Giants with, I would say, a slight quarterback upgrade, if not even push from Daniel Jones. The difference being, let's face it, Russell Wilson probably a better leader overall. And I would argue just the Giants being healthy is huge. And so the reason I want to spend a lot of time in this, because we obviously have, I guess, 3 running back plays that we can consider here. Tracy is the top play, I would say. Pricing-wise, obviously, that's going to be true. And if you look at Tracy during the preseason, he had some pretty good plays that kind of stood out casually. I don't think a lot of people that were just watching the game are going to notice some of the nice runs that he had, but he looked pretty impressive. You got Cam Scatterbo there, who I'm not too worried about. Devin Singletary is the player I'm most worried about as well. Tyrone Tracy Jr. got a goal line carry after a long throw from Russell Wilson to Bo Collins. And Bo Collins got ruled down the one. Tyrone Tracy gets one crack at the 1 yard line, did not get in there. Then they brought in Devin Singletary. That could end up being Devin Singletary's role or Cam Scatterbo. That's a concern to me for sure. But I do think even if this game gets out of hand, if Vegas ends up being correct, that Tracy should get a decent amount of work in the passing game. Okay, I think we could get a cheap 4 points there. And then I do think he's going to look good in the rushing department as well. But this does, to me, seem like a great GPP play. Now, the easy take, the part that everyone's going to probably say, is we should be targeting at least one of the running backs here for the Commanders. Now, if you think the Giants maybe could end up winning this game, Austin Eckler is going to be a little bit of a better play, I would say, just because he is going to get involved in the passing game. I do think that is going to be something that ends up happening, guys. Austin Eckler last year, weeks 1 through 11, just really dominated. There's one bad week in there where he had 4 points, and then 7.8 is not great. But I do think there's a good chance that early on in the season, just him being a veteran running back, I do think there's a greater chance that he gets a decent amount of work, especially given the fact that Terry, again, did not play throughout the preseason or camp. He did not have a camp as well. Deebo Samuel, they're still working on that a little bit. You just resort to someone that you can trust. And obviously, Austin Eckler is a veteran running back at this point. He is someone that you can trust. So at his price tag, he's certainly in play. But given the game script that we are projected to get, Bill Krosky Merritt is going to be the top play that everyone is probably going to be on. I do worry that he could end up being chalk, but he probably will be chalk for a good reason. Again, just because of the game script that's in their favor. If they do end up blowing out the Giants, he should get a lot of work in this game, and he probably would be part of the reason as to why why this game ends up being a blowout. And he's just super cheap. And so, yes, he does end up being some of that. I do think we just kind of need to click into our builds for now. That could end up changing. I don't necessarily love it because we aren't guaranteed to get his workload. Like Chris Rodriguez did look good. I'm a little bit worried that Bill played into the fourth quarter of their second preseason game. Typically, that is concerning. And I do think we could have seen a lot of Austin Eckler to start the season. And then another pretty easy running back play, and one play that I think we just need to be targeting a bunch is going to be Nick Chubb. Now, another concern with Nick Chubb is potential game script. Now, the other Rams should be good to go. They kind of retooled. They got rid of Cooper Kupp, brought in Devontae Adams, Kyren Williams. They signed to a new contract. The concern is going to be with Matthew Stafford and whether or not he's going to be fully healthy to go in week 1. I expect him to be, and so I kind of expect the other Rams to win that game and win that game by a decent margin. Maybe not, though. The Texans are a good team. But Nick Chubb, again, what I'm looking for when I'm watching preseason film is whether or not a player like Nick Chubb still has some burst. He didn't look like his old self, I will say that, but he kind of reminded me of J.K. Dobbins last year, where J.K. Dobbins, clearly not as good as he once was running back wise, does not have the quick movements that you would want out of a starting running back for your squad, but does enough of the things correct that you would want to see out of a running back. And although they have Woody Marks, who is okay, he's a rookie running back, and they also have Dameon Pierce, who could end up being the reason this doesn't work out, and they have Dario Gumbawale, who probably is going to be the third down running back. Assuming that this game stays close, we should at least be getting a running back that has a great chance to score a touchdown, but also should get us 15 carries in this game. Again, I don't expect him to get that much work in the passing game, and that's a concern. But at this price tag, to get someone that's clearly devalued, to get a guy that clearly would have been higher priced had the news came out that Joe Mixon was going to be out, he is someone that would have been priced up probably $300 more expensive. Not a huge value, again, given kind of his skill set in this offense, but still someone we should be looking at. And then there are two more situations that we have to talk about, guys. So the Cleveland Browns. So Quinshawn Junkins I don't know what's going on there, hasn't signed yet. Based off of what we have seen thus far this preseason, Dylan Sampson's actually going to be the RB1 in this offense. Okay. Now, I do think it's definitely going to be an RB1 or RBA and RBB situation, RB1, RB2, so, whatever. I think it's going to be a split between Dylan Sampson and Jerome Ford. That's pretty clear to me. But the fact that we can get a running back that, again, probably will be the starting running back in this offense, that to me is appealing. And let's be honest, we're probably expecting Cincinnati to win by a decent amount in this game. And so as the game becomes a blowout, you would expect someone like Dylan Sampson to potentially get some more work and give us some garbage time usage as well. He's interesting at that price tag, but more of a GPP only play. Then I also think we have to talk about Tank Bigsby a little bit. He is the one Jaguars receiver that I probably running back that I want to be on the most, especially price point wise. Like Bishal Tutton, we don't really know what to expect from him workload wise. Allen was a surprising DNP for them in their preseason week 3, which typically suggests that he could be a part of the regular season for them as well. You still have Travis Etienne there as well. But if you look at like play in, play out, who's probably going to be the RB1? I do think it's going to be Tank Bigsby. I think he's going to be the one we can trust to have a good workload. And if you look at the matchup with Carolina, that is a matchup that we do want to be targeting, although it is a little bit of a guessing game. This leads us to believe that all of the Jaguars running backs are just going to be more of GPP only plays. And so I will say I probably want to be on a running back to be in my flex. Could end up being Ollie Gordon. It is a little bit of a we'll figure it out as the lineup is progressing based off of the receivers and tight ends we want to be on. Let's just go ahead and put JT in there in the flex. And I think we're looking at a very high floor here. Maybe we're worried a little bit about Bill, but James Conner, JT should be safe plays. Now we're going to go ahead and jump on into the receivers, guys. So receiver-wise, Jahmyr Chase does obviously look like the best receiver play on the slate in week 1. There always is a little bit of a concern that ends up being a T. Higgins game in week 1. Yes, that is a concern, but I don't think overall we're that worried about it. And we kind of look at what he did last year against Cleveland. That's also a little bit of a concern, guys. 22.4 points and 17.6. Okay, we want a little bit more than that out of him, but given the amount of value that we're getting on the slate, he, to me, does stand out as a player we should just be paying up for. Working T. Higgins a little bit there in case it's more of a T. Higgins game than Jahmyr Chase, but simply put, just play the top receiver on the slate because we're going to be able to. Now, I'm not that worried about Puka Nacua and his role, and this is where you might be like, all right, why would I pay up that much for Jahmyr Chase when we can just get Puka Nacua, who's going to be similar value? Again, if Matthew Stafford's good to go, we can typically trust on Puka to have a very high floor. I do like Devontae Adams as well, but overall, Puka Nacua should be a safe option. We really don't need to do that in week 1. So let's continue on. Like Brian Thomas Jr., some people are going to be interested in playing. I don't necessarily want to get there with him, especially in week 1 with Trevor Lawrence there and Liam Cohen. Like a lot of his production, Brian Thomas Jr., came from Mac Jones, not Trevor Lawrence. So I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach there. Drake London is someone that to me does scream to be a safe play on this slate. But also, as I mentioned earlier, Bijan Robinson had one really good game, and Drake London had one really good game against the Bucks, and it did flip-flop there. So a little bit of a concern to me. Again, I do worry a little bit about Mike Evans just simply because he could end up being double-teamed a decent amount in this game. And let's jump into kind of the clear-cut values, and we'll start with Emeka Egbuka. So as I mentioned earlier, guys, yes, they are going to be pretty thin at the receiver position. He has been getting just a ton of hype out of camp. Egbuka has been, and I believe it. He was, to me, watching a lot of the college film, he was the player I kind of wanted the Packers to draft just because he seemed like the most NFL ready, and he has proven that in camp. He has looked good in camp, and again, he's going to be the receiver number 2, and to me, just being if I was a defensive coordinator, I think just game 1, all right, prove it to me, rookie receiver. Prove it to me that you can beat us. Prove it to me that you and Baker Mayfield have that chemistry to beat us as well. I'm going to double team Mike Evans, and maybe we'll adjust in the second half if need be. And honestly, pricing wise, it is really not that hard to ask him to at least 2x. He should be able to 3x for us at this price tag as well. So he is someone I do think we should be getting into, but I don't think he's the top value receiver play that we have because we also have Ricky Pearsall here as well. Guys, Ricky Pearsall is going to be the receiver number 1 in this offense for the San Francisco 49ers. Most likely, I mean, I'm not worried about Jawan Jennings. Honestly, it's probably going to end up being George Kittle and CMC a little bit as well. But when we look at Ricky Pearsall, he kind of just stands out as one of the best values in like season-long best ball leagues as well. That's starting to correct as I'm recording this video, actually. But for week 1 value, I mean, this is insane. This is clearly just a pricing mistake by them. I honestly don't know how this happened. 4.5. would have been insane for him regardless of the injury situations for the Niners, but they are so banged up at the receiver spot that he is someone that not only do they try to get the ball to him, in manufactured ways, short screens and whatnot, but he is someone that they need to step up as well. And he's someone that has looked good. Now, I will say, just film-wise, like when you look at someone like Ladd McConkey, like just clearly stands out as an elite talent. Like you could just tell he's going to be a star. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's like Ricky Pearsall. I would say a better example would be kind of like Michael Pittman, where if you need Michael Pittman to be the receiver number one in your offense, he can look good doing that there as well. I would say it's more of the talent level of Ricky Pearsall. I know it's not the best example, but you guys kind of get the point. But regardless, at this price tag, he is someone that we should just be targeting. It's clear. Okay. Now let's continue on with some of the top end receivers we could pay up for. And I could find a reason to like be on some of these players, but again, we're getting so much value here. Let's just start with more of the 5.5 and under range. Okay. So you look at Deebo Samuel. I do think there's a good chance that Deebo Samuel is actually pretty involved in the offense in week one. I actually think part of the reason as to why they let go of like Brian Robinson Jr. is the potential that in a game, if let's say Eckler were to get banged up and have to sit, you could theoretically put Deebo Samuel in at the running back slot if you needed to, just for that week. And then let's say Chris Rodriguez isn't active for that game or something like that, you could then just call up Chris Rodriguez. I think that's part of it, slightly, like not a big factor at all. Like that's just like the cherry on top of that move. And obviously, it's more rooted in contract situations with Brian Robinson Jr. and talent from Chris Rodriguez and Bill. But again, there is that slight potential that you could use him in the rushing game. And given how Vegas sees this game going, it would suggest that Washington is continuing to play well. Thus, Deebo Samuel, who we were concerned about, honestly, at the start of like mini camps when he looked slow, but he looked good. He looked like his normal self throughout the preseason and throughout the rest of camp. So at that price tag, he's going to be in play. Jacoby Myers is interesting. He would have been someone I was looking at, but there's some trade talk going on with him. We'll take a wait and see approach with him. Chris Olave, the receiver number one for the Saints in a game that they're going to be playing from behind in, is a little bit intriguing as well. We do have Michael Pittman Jr. in that game that, with Josh Downs potentially sitting, will probably be the receiver number one. And honestly, with Daniel Jones there, I do think that does benefit Michael Pittman Jr. a bunch. And so him at under 5K is also an insane value to begin him there. Now, it does seem like a spot where we're either choosing JT or Michael Pittman Jr. That's up to you guys. I really don't mind it either way. Michael Pittman Jr. is certainly someone we're going to be on a decent amount in GPPs. Now, another insane value that we have, guys, Matthew Golden. I honestly do not get the price in here as well. It's never seemed like he wasn't going to be the receiver number one for the Green Bay Packers, like literally at any point, especially when the pricing came out for DraftKings. This is insane. He should at least be $400, $500 more expensive. I would argue 5.5. Okay, at that point, he becomes a GPP only play. But throughout camp, he has been the receiver number one, been extremely impressive there as well. They are thin at the receiver position as well. Sure, Romeo Doubs is going to get some work, and we should be looking at Romeo Doubs as well. Romeo Doubs is someone I could consider in cash as well a little bit, but we are kind of banking on Doubs to get an end zone fade touchdown pretty much. Whereas Matthew Golden, I kind of expect to just be unleashed in week one. I expect part of the game plan to honestly be around Matthew Golden and his talent as well. He would be the rookie receiver I'd be most excited about in drafts as well, just because he has the clearest path to being the receiver number one for his offense, because he already is, and because the offense should be very good. So, like, obviously Carolina, we don't know exactly if that offense is going to be good. Green Bay, we're all expecting that offense to still be good. And so, yes, Matthew Golden at that price tag is just way too cheap. We need to be looking at him there as well. Then we still have Adam Thielen, guys. Adam Thielen in a good spot against Jaguars. The question is, how much is he going to play? Christian Kirk, I think, is just an extremely good value there as well. With Houston, he's someone that you could kind of just plug in and feel good about. Marvin Mims is going to be a GPP only play throughout the whole year. Wendell Robinson, a fine kind of shoulder shrug play. If you end up on him, you're fine with it. Do want to talk about Demario Douglas. So he has been a standout in camp, as he was last year. He's kind of a security blanket for Drake May as well. And if Diggs is going to be out, Demario Douglas is going to be someone we want to look at. And it just becomes a player at a very low price tag that's going to be likely to 2x, potentially even 3x there. Drake May has been getting a ton of hype out of camp, and if that hype ends up being true, then yes, this is a great price for Demario Douglas. Now, I do want to jump into like some 4K and lower plays because it's insane the amount of value that we're getting on this slate for receivers. Now, I wouldn't say there's like a specific clear-cut value that we have. Like in years past, guys, like Puka Nacua, I called out in week 1 for you guys as like an elite value like 2 years ago. Devon Valet was kind of a casual value play I mentioned as well last year as well. Like, there are some spots where we can get to, but there isn't like a standout spot. There's a bunch, but like there isn't one that's like clearly better than the other. I would argue like Tyler Lockett would be that one. They're going to have to throw the ball a lot. Like we already talked about the game script in this game between Denver. He is going to be the receiver number 2. And I would imagine he's going to be a safety blanket for Cam Ward. And he should be someone that gets a lot of manufactured touches in this game as well. So he's certainly intriguing at 4K. We have a bunch of players with the last name Washington that I need to talk about as well. Okay, so let's start with Casey Washington, who apparently is basically locked into the Darnell Mooney role. It seems like he did not play much in the preseason. And that tells us that, yes, he is probably going to be in that Darnell Mooney role. And that's saying something because Chris Blair looked really good in the preseason. Drummond looked really good in the preseason. And Nick Nash also looked really good in the preseason. So the fact that he has already outplayed them, to me, is very intriguing. Now, we do have to call it that there also is Ray McLeod as well, who's also very cheap as well, under 4K. He naturally should step into a little bit more work as well with Darnell Mooney expected to sit as well. We got to see. Like, it has to be confirmed. Okay, but like I think he's probably going on the RER. That's just the confirmation that we're waiting on there. So those two instantly become great plays, and let's be honest, not many people are going to want to play them. Okay, maybe it ends up being a decent stacking opportunity with Michael Penix in a game that's supposed to be high scoring. Okay, I really don't mind that. They both should begin over 50% of the snaps as well. Another sneaky, potentially good value receiver play would be Jalen Coker, who has gotten a lot of hype. He just has. He looked good at parts last year. I would argue he was their most impressive receiver last year, other than Adam Thielen. And that's the point I want to bring up, is that there is talks that the Minnesota Vikings are trying to acquire Adam Thielen. If that ends up happening, then Coker instantly becomes a great value for us. And then another receiver situation that we have to talk about is going to be with the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay, so if Jacoby Myers ends up getting traded, I don't expect that to happen at all. But if he does, then Thornton and also Trey Tucker both become great plays. Both of them are already pretty good GPP plays at their price tag. Thornton at 3.6, expected to start, but you also have Trey Tucker, who is a big play receiver, who to me, if Myers were to get traded, becomes a decently intriguing play. But the top two probably values I would say that we have under 4K would be Adonai Mitchell there for the Indianapolis Colts if Josh Downs were to sit. He's already been getting the most hype out of camp for any Colts player, and it makes sense for him to play on the outside. Like Alex Pierce, I'm not sure his role would change all too much. We do like Michael Pittman, but at the same time, Mitchell, just given the hype that he's gotten out of camp, and honestly, he's looked good. It does seem like he's taking another step this year, and it does seem like there is some chemistry going on between him and Daniel Jones. And so him to be priced at 3.4 is intriguing. Heck, I would argue he's a little bit of a GPP play still if Downs plays, but even if Downs sits, then he becomes one of my favorite sub 4K plays. And then one other one we got to call, Pat Bryant did look good. Pat Bryant made them trade the receiver number 2 from last year, Devon Valet, to the New Orleans Saints. I know some people are going to say it's Marvin Mims. You guys get what I'm saying. The outside receiver there, obviously Mims, more of a big play receiver, but we could be getting a very cheap 10 points here from Pat Bryant if he does end up starting. That is a big if, because Troy Franklin did look good as well, but I think we're all expecting Pat Bryant to be kind of in that valet role there as well. And so if you play 65% of the snaps, that could easily be 5 targets for 50 yards and give us 10 points. So certainly someone I want to call out to guys there as well. So let's go ahead and jump on into the tight ends. And really, guys, as it currently sits right now, I just think we play George Kittle. They are going to be extremely thin. Again, the Niners are, the pass catchers are for the Niners. Brock Purdy clearly trusts George Kittle. He did not lose the step last year. And we saw at times last year where he had to get the football to him because, CMC was banged up and they obviously didn't have that many pass catchers. I still think that holds true here. And if you want to stack him with Brock Purdy, you can. I love getting to him, and part of that is simply because we do have this salary to be able to do that. We're going to be able to afford to be able to do that. Now, from there, it is worth calling out some other options that we do have. Okay, Njoku is in a good matchup there against the Bengals. Don't necessarily love that too much. Typically speaking, guys, my strategy at the tight end position is find the lowest price tight end that is going to be able to at least 2x their price tag. It's a way of punting tight end to be able to afford to pay up for the other studs that we have. I just don't think we need to do that in week 1 where we're getting some extreme value that we will not get, 3 weeks, 4 weeks from now. But to me, guys, like Zach Ertz at like almost 4K is definitely intriguing, even if it is against a team last year, the Giants, that did not give up that much tight end production. I'm not too worried about that as a whole. He should be somewhat of a safety blanket for Jaden Daniels. At least he's been practicing throughout training camp as well. And we saw him be extremely productive last year for the Washington Commanders as well. Tucker Kraft, I fully expect to take another step here, guys. Obviously, last year I was begging you guys to draft him in best ball drafts and your season-long drafts. He was someone that I mentioned so much last year as a great DFS play as well, just because he was typically too cheap. And so I would argue he's still too cheap here, again, especially given how banged up the Packers receivers are. Wicks is looking banged up and hasn't looked all that good. Jaden Reed, I'm kind of expecting Jaden Reed to not play in week 1, and that's part of the reason why I like Matthew Golden a decent amount. But to me, guys, Tucker Kraft should probably take the next step and become more of an elite tight end, and he's extremely cheap then. Now, I mentioned how I was kind of telling you guys to draft Tucker Kraft a bunch last year. I would argue the player that's most likely to be, last year's Tucker Kraft is Brendan Strange there, who does seem like and Tucker Kraft was that year's Drake Ferguson, who was kind of a late round tight end that we could get that's going to give us a top 10 tight end production. I think that's Strange. We saw him kind of outplay Evan Ingram last year. I think that's part of the reason as to why they're comfortable getting rid of him. And he actually held some chemistry there with Trevor Lawrence. And if Travis Hunter, who's currently banged up, ends up sitting, I do not expect that. But I do still think Strange is someone we can definitely consider at 3.3. And then I do want to call it Tyler Higbee as well. We saw once Higbee started to get his normal snap share, he was basically Tyler Higbee before he got injured. And you got to remember, before his injury, they had just, I think it was literally the week before, had just signed him to a contract extension, and then he got injured. So they were looking to invest in him. Okay, they did target the tight end position, but the rookie tight end Ferguson has been a little bit banged up to the point where he didn't play all that much in the preseason. Okay, so I do think it's really going to be the Tyler Higbee show at the start of the season for the LA Rams. And that's another wrinkle that people are probably forgetting about. And maybe that game becomes a little bit of a shootout there with the matchup between Houston. And Higbee is certainly interesting at that price tag. And so let's go ahead and jump on into the quarterbacks, guys. So for me, we could play Baker, but just take the wait and see approach, honestly, just with, again, I like Ibuka a lot. I have him in this lineup, but let's just proceed with a little bit of caution. I don't think we need to force that in there in week 1. I do think kind of the easy quarterback play in week 1 is just go with Joe Burrow. If you are playing Ja'Marr Chase, we would expect Joe Burrow to go off in this matchup with Cleveland. At the same time, that was not necessarily the case last year. So it's not like a lock in the play. 22, which was great. And then in the first game, though, 14.9. Now, the difference for Joe Burrow this year compared to last year is that he played in the preseason. Okay, I don't expect them to get off to a slow start. So obviously, it's going to be more intriguing to me there then as well. Now, if we're playing Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle, we obviously have to consider Brock Purdy. And that's going back to the point where either you're investing in the value of Ricky Pearsall and maybe playing Brock Purdy with that, or you're going with CMC there at the running back spot. It can go either way. I'm fine with both. I don't mind the idea of getting to Michael Penix in stacks, Bryce Young in stacks. I'm fine with that. Tua, I'm a little bit worried about. And actually, we got to go back into the receivers real quick. I mentioned I passed over the other Washingtons. Apologies for that, guys. So the two others are going to be Parker Washington, who I do think is going to be the receiver number 3 there for the Jaguars, especially if Travis Hunter is kind of mixing and matching in cornerback and receiver snaps. He looked good at the end of the year last year. He's been getting a lot of hype out of camp, has looked good in camp as well. Trevor Lawrence has been able to hit him a decent amount as well. But really, the standout play could end up being Malik Washington. Okay, and I do think this could end up being a stack with Tua Tagovailoa as well. So if Tyreek Hill ends up sitting, Malik Washington instantly becomes the best value. Okay, and my bad for messing this up earlier. Malik Washington has gotten a lot of production in the preseason with the Stars with Tua already. Okay, they clearly have been getting the football to him in manufactured ways. And I would say he hasn't been as impressive this year as he was last year, but Tua already gave him hype saying he has a very high football IQ. This stuff just keeps stacking up for Malik Washington. So he might already be someone that just ends up playing 50% of the snaps if Tyreek Hill is active, but if he's not active, I expect him to get kind of the workload that he got last year at the end of the season, but double that. I do. I expect him to be able to take a next step. So he is certainly something we are paying attention to, but I kind of like that as a very low owned stack. And you got to remember, Jonnu Smith is no longer there. They do have Darren Waller, who hasn't really practiced or played much. Smith was kind of getting used in the short yardage situations a lot. I was a little bit shocked by that. I thought it would be Washington at the end of the year last year. They did not do that. But if you're looking at Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill sitting, while also Darren Waller still getting acclimated again to football shape and whatnot, Malik Washington is just kind of the clear-cut standout play at the receiver spot value-wise. Like, he should easily be able to 3x that. So I'm sorry for not talking about that. My bad. But yeah, with Tyreek Hill or with Tua, I think that ends up being an interesting stack. And then I am kind of buying into a little bit of a Trevor Lawrence resurgence, kind of like Baker Mayfield was able to do under Liam Cohen as well. They obviously invested in the position a bunch. Brian Thomas last year, Travis Hunter this year. They still have Parker Washington, who's young. They brought in Brown as well. They clearly want Trevor Lawrence to be the thing. And the one thing I want to see from him is just a little bit more rush attempts, honestly. I want to see a few more rush attempts from there, but he makes for a good GPP play going against the Carolina Panthers. And then, guys, lastly, let's talk about DST-wise. I think, there's just one game that kind of stands out, and it's going to be this game between the Jets and the Steelers. So let's start with kind of the quarterback scenario here. It's fun, right? Justin Fields started for the Pittsburgh Steelers last year, got them off to a winning record. They ended up going with Russell Wilson because they were coming to a difficult portion of their season, and they really had to. Justin Fields, I honestly don't think would be the Jets quarterback had he started for the rest of the season because he would have been exposed. We know he's not a good quarterback. The whole purpose of the Jets bringing him in to be the quarterback for them is so that he's not the quarterback next year. That's the whole point. They are intentionally trying to tank. I don't know why Jets fans are not. I guess they're okay with that. They're like, yes, we need to do something here. We know it's going to be a bad season. Let's just write this one off. It's kind of interesting that they haven't tried to trade Breece Hall or Garrett Wilson while also, again, intentionally trying to tank this year. It's strange. Then you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers with Aaron Rodgers. It's obviously going to be more of a game clock management type game. Okay. And so we look at Justin Fields, who has had a terrible camp. Okay, had a good preseason game against my Packers, don't get me wrong, but he was scrambling there. Look good scrambling. That's the whole appeal of Justin Fields is his ability to rush the football. But if Aaron Rodgers couldn't make that offense really, he did. There's a bunch of close games where just a lot of random stuff happened. One score games, a lot of losses that way. But if Aaron Rodgers couldn't make that work, how is Justin Fields going to make that work? Right? Especially in terms of being an offensive powerhouse, especially in terms of it being in the discussion of which DSTs we should be on. And then they're going against the Steelers that are typically known for being a good defense. And you have Aaron Rodgers there that's, again, going to be more of a game manager at this point. The one concern is that they don't really have a bruiser running back. Like Jalen Warren is going to be the starter for them. That's a little bit concerning. Like you would want a grinder at the running back position to do that. But I think we're looking at the Steelers DST. You could also look at the Jets as well, but I think we're looking at the Steelers DST. Now, obviously, it's worth calling out. If you can pay up for the Denver Broncos, you typically want to do that. Now, guys, my typical strategy when it comes to DST is just play the lowest price DST that's not going to go negative. It's typically the strategy. And if we're looking at it, again, maybe Washington gets off to a slow start there for all the reasons already laid out. Could potentially see that. After that, Titans against Denver, I don't necessarily love that. Raiders against New England's a little bit intriguing. But at that point, I'm like, all right, let's just pay a little extra. We got plenty of value to be able to do that, and we should be good to go. Now, you guys are going to look at this and say, no, you have $100 left over. We obviously have to make a switch. It really doesn't matter, honestly. Like, if you want to get off of Ibuka and go with Romeo Doubs, you could do that. Like, I'm fine with that. We got Demario Douglas there as well. I'm fine with that. If you want to go down from JT, again, it's early on the week, but I do think we want to be playing a running back. Maybe you take more of a trip to Value Town and go with Tyrone Tracy Jr. to then be able to pay up at receiver a little bit more, 5.7. That is great. We could go with Jalen Waddle. Someone that we'd want to look at, again, if Tyreek Hill is out. Now, guys, that's going to do it for this video. It was obviously more of a deep dive, but a fun video for me as well. I gave you guys the first look build. I will be doing another video next week that will include the NFL DFS lineup optimizer and the 9-to-5 cheat sheet as well, which will all be tools that will be updated and ready to go in week one by Monday, probably end of the week, honestly, but by Monday when the week starts. So just want to call that out to you guys. I am working on just a little bit of things here and there. But yes, that tool will be available for you guys week one on Monday. If you guys want access to all the NFL DFS tools, head on over to 9to5sports.com. Get access to all those tools for a low monthly cost of $10 a month. That's going to do it for this video. Appreciate you being here. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. That does help out a bunch. Let's have a good NFL season. We had a great preseason. Hopefully you guys are able to cash in on that. But that's going to be all, guys. Thanks for watching. Good luck. And as always, let's keep cashing.